Hi, my name is Joseph, and welcome to part 3 of chapter 2 from Digimon Seekers, a Hacker Leon, www Airlines Flight 626. And before I start discussing the quotes that I want to focus on, I just want to quickly state that part 3 was really exciting. So far, I'm really loving the internal workings of the Sons of Chaos. We haven't gotten much about their internal workings, but from their communication, the way they operate for finding new operators, especially mind linkers, or rather specifically finding new crackers, specifically mind linkers. I think it's been really fun and exciting so far. I especially really enjoyed the part how we got an introduction through his voice of Tartarus. And I loved how after he gave his speech to the members of Operation Infinity, he states, or rather it's not Tartarus, it's Marvin. After Tartarus gives his small speech, his introduction, Marvin states after the fever that Tartarus created for the freedom of the network, and then everyone else replies for the freedom of the digital world. That was actually quite cool. I really enjoyed that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the quotes I want to focus on. So the first one is, there are no burdens in the digital world, but there are on the networks in the real world. Physical servers are hosted in countries with geopolitical borders and are subject to their laws or the rules of whatever organization owns them. The large-scale operation of the Sons of Chaos have been talking about nothing less than hacking of a foreign nation's server, the Nation of X. What I really appreciate about this quote is it does two things at once. I feel like the first is establishing exactly how the digital world operates in relation to a country. We so far have gotten some insight into this, but nothing as quite specific as this. So essentially, to my understanding, physical servers are hosted in countries with geopolitical borders and are subject to their laws. And what I'm thinking of essentially is kind of like whatever the physical location that the country is at in terms of their network location, that's where their digital landscape exists as well. Or that's how I'm imagining it at the very least. And what I also like about this quote is the last portion, that what Sons of Chaos with Operation Infinity, they were discussing about the hacking of a foreign nation server, the Nation of X. So obviously they being Bandai Namco, they're not going to specify which nation this specifically is, especially because this is not a positive nation. They're using Digimon for terrorism, and not only that, but as a scapegoat as well. All the bad that they're doing, they're using these Sons of Chaos as a scapegoat for that. And that's why the Sons of Chaos is going after this specific nation. That's a small line, but I think it does a lot to really establish what's going on here. For the second quote, the X Nation is a nuclear power and are recently engaged in cyber warfare in the digital world to distract from continued terrorist activities that threaten to destabilize the real world. A number of cyber attacks have come out of there in recent years. Just the other day, they hacked an exchange. I'm sorry, everyone. It's actually because I thought there was two parts to this quote. Yes, excuse me, everyone, because it didn't fit on my screen. Before I read this quote, I actually wanted to read this portion. So Marvin states they're near, they being the X Nation, the Nation of X. They're near the bottom in terms of GDP, but they're notorious state sponsors of terrorism. Marvin said matter-of-factly, some dictator or other had ruled over the nation for decades now. And then going down a little bit, Marvin continues, the X Nation is a nuclear power and had recently engaged in cyber warfare in the digital world to distract from continued terrorist activities that threaten to destabilize the real world. A number of cyber attacks have come out of there in recent years. Just the other day, they hacked an exchange. Oh, sorry, because the wording of this statement. The first stumble was my fault, but then the wording is what caused the second stumble. Just the other day, they hacked an exchange. Just the other day, and stole the equivalent of billions of dollars in cryptocurrency, Marvin said, returning to the matter at hand. That was their doing. Ichi couldn't help himself. Yep, that was a state-sponsored Digimon crime. And we can't let that happen to the Grimm and the Grimm economic bloc on our watch. This is a fundamental to our ideals and our freedom. Grimm famously runs on Digicoin, or DC. It's proprietary cryptocurrency. It let Grimm break away from the most popular flat currency, the US dollar, and from other Grimm economic bloc. So this quote, as always, it always seems like there's at least two aspects of why I pick a quote. So this one is the first quote I believe in this series, both for both chapter 1 and chapter 2, where actually I'm splitting up the quote. So the first portion, I love how we're getting some minor details about the nation of X. They might not be a leading nation, but they are a nation that's doing what? They're utilizing Digimon for terrorism. And the notorious state sponsors of terrorism. I like this because I've been saying since the beginning, well, maybe not since the beginning, but fairly since the beginning, that maybe the Sons of Chaos are not the antagonistical force that we're meant to believe they are. We being the readers. It kind of seems like there are some positive implications here. I would argue that the professor is also doing the same thing to some extent, right? He's aware about the Sons of Chaos, and he wants to stop the Sons of Chaos from continuing to contaminate the perspective and opinions of the digital world, and so the professor uses or utilizes EG. In this instance, the Sons of Chaos, we don't know their primary objective. Sorry, everyone, excuse me. But in this instance, it's looking like because of actions that other countries are doing, which is giving a negative impression of the Sons of Chaos, just like the way that the Sons of Chaos is doing to the digital world. The Sons of Chaos want to correct that impression. They want to correct that perspective. So I can't help but see that. I can't help but notice that there seems to be some foil between the professor and his actions and the Sons of Chaos and their actions. So I'm using this as evidence to suggest that again, the Sons of Chaos, they're going to apply some heroic notion as the story continues. I might be wrong about that. And then from the second part of this quote, how the X Nation recently engaged in cyber warfare to distract from continued terrorist activities that threaten to destabilize the real world. Again, this really emphasizes that the actions that the Sons of Chaos is going to do is going to affect not just the digital world, but the real world as well. And it's really looking like this will benefit the real world more than the digital world. It's going to stop terrorism. Let me start over. It's going to stop both cyber terrorism and terrorism, but it's looking like the main goal for this Nation of X is to conduct terrorist activities rather than cyber terrorism. The cyber terrorism is being used as a scapegoat, as a smokescreen for the X Nation to conduct the real world activities. I think that's really awesome. And then I also like EG's outburst. That was dumb. It shows us that EG is not keeping up with world events and current events. At the very least, he's aware of the big happenings that's going on, right? For example, I don't want to be specific, but whenever natural disasters or man-made disasters or something occurs, even if one doesn't follow the news, they'll typically be aware about it because of the discussion that's surrounding them, be it from their friends, family, or workplace, right? And then lastly, I like how the chapter in this part reminds us about the importance of Grimm and how Grimm is, in terms of finances, in terms of its currency, it's quite close to being equal to the US dollar. Really fancy world building. I appreciate that. So moving on. Also, excuse me, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I know my reading is a bit wonky because of that previous quote. I actually needed to reduce the size of my font. But I'm going to increase that right now, and hopefully I'll be reading a bit better. Thank you for your patience. I really do appreciate it. So moving on, based on the lawless digital world as it was, the block sent shockwaves to the real world's financial markets. Grimm's very existence posed a direct threat to the monopoly that governments and central banks held on currency production, which gave them the power to shape the world as they pursued their own interests. To these entities, the thought of Digicoin reaching the same value as, say, the US dollar was a crisis scenario. The value of other currencies would collapse and the public would suffer massive losses at the hands of a world they didn't even know existed. Those building the future in the digital world, meanwhile, would be afforded massive amounts of power. It would precipitate a financial crisis worse than any had come before. The current ruling class would do everything in their power to place restrictions on the digital world that they might one day control it themselves. So this further establishes what I said with the previous quote. Again, the reminder of how important Grimm can become and why some world nations are really against the idea of Grimm gaining more financial power. And why is that? Because again, if it reaches the same level as real world currencies, and the example they're using here, they being Bando Namco, the US dollar, well, that's going to cause a huge shift in terms of power. And so, of course, those who are currently in power, not just governments, but the upper class, and I would argue this includes both the modern aristocrats and also from those from modern new money, right? In case of those who aren't aware, aristocrats means they get their money from the land that they own and buildings that they own. Well, that's the modern definition. Whilst, um, excuse me, everyone, my cat turned on my computer, so now you're going to see lights in the background. Hopefully, you won't hear the noise. Excuse me about that. My cat stepped on the button. What was I saying? Let me just quickly shut this off because I'm not gonna lie, it distracted me a little bit. Let me further push my keyboard. So I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. My cat is wandering about my office. Excuse me. So let me go back. Owed aristocrat. That's owed money, and the new money. Those who got their money from well, businesses, because they're getting the money through their CEOs, or they own a store, a restaurant, and so forth. So the individuals who currently have that wealth, that power, they're not looking forward to this drastic shift in dynamics. Again, I do thank everyone for the patience. My cat, she enjoys to explore. Let me just quickly move my keyboard a bit more back just to be safe, and now we'll continue forward. Yeah, so that's why I appreciated this quote. So moving on, code crackers were denounced as terrorists by the international community, but were nevertheless willing to risk everything to open a new frontier in the digital world. That freedom is intoxicating. But wait, if the X nation is committing cyber terrorism and Digimon crimes, if you take a step back, so are all of us code crackers, right? E.G. asked, working through the problem as he went. The room erupted in laughter once more. Code crackers weren't exactly upstanding citizens to begin with. You got a point, AG. The difference is that the X Nation's dictator does not respect the freedom of the network or the digital world as we do. To the extent that he does, he respects it only as far as it serves his own interests. Yeah, but I want to strike it rich too. Isn't that why we all became code crackers? To change our lives? Well, that brings me to why we want to target the X Nation. To piss off that dictator, Ichi thought to himself. The Sons of Chaos bigwigs were even more to the point. We want to destabilize that sorry-botting excuse for a leader because of the Mega Machinedramon. EG interjected, silencing the room. The X Nation is using a Mega Digimon to commit Digimon crimes and cyber terrorism, and they're pinning it on the SOC, on the Sons of Chaos. So with this quote, I think this really helps to establish that there is a foil to be made between the professor and his actions and the Sons of Chaos. And I think what's being done right here is that AG is reminding the reader, well, while it's true that the Sons of Chaos might be going after this nation because this nation has selfish reasons, well, aren't we code crackers? Aren't we doing the same thing, right? We became code crackers in the first place because we want to utilize the digital world to make ourselves become wealthy. And the Sons of Chaos explains, while that may be true, there's a big difference between those two, and it's that with the X Nation, specifically this world leader, they're creating a persona that's incorrect, right? Let me go to this specific. We want to destabilize that sorry-botting excuse for leader because the X Nation is using a Mega Digimon to commit Digimon crimes and cyber terrorism, and they're pinning it on the Sons of Chaos. So essentially, while it's true that the Sons of Chaos may want to make themselves rich, what I'm understanding from this quote is that the Sons of Chaos do not throw other individuals under the bus. They don't throw other groups under the bus in the same way that this world leader is doing. And I wanted to read this part as well. The difference is that the X Nation's dictator does not respect the freedom of the network or the digital world as we do. In other words, respecting everyone's individual responsibility to the extent that he does, the world leader, he respects it only as far as it serves his own interests. And again, what is this referring to? The world leader creating a smokescreen to conduct terrorism while pinning the cyber terrorism onto the Sons of Chaos. Thus, all attention will be turned towards the Sons of Chaos. And I can't help but wonder, maybe this is true, because at the beginning of the story, right off the bat, we get the concerns that the professor has about the Sons of Chaos. What if this incident with the flight, what if that wasn't the Sons of Chaos? What if that was actually the Machinedramon? Actually, she's kind of came up with that right now, and that's an interesting idea to follow along. Maybe that's why this chapter is called after that airplane incident, right? We're going to discover more background information to make the whole story clear to the reader, to the audience, and we're going to discover that the Sons of Chaos was framed right? Oh, this is actually getting really exciting. I'm actually really loving this. Again, I just made those connections right now, so excuse me. And also with this quote, I'm really curious as to how EG was already aware about the Digimon, and I do both love and hate how he's interjecting with his own answers because that shows that he's aware, but also don't like it just because it seems like these Sons of Chaos have a set system that they follow, and I just wish that EG would impress them through that way. But going forward, the next quote, this is the second to last quote. As a result of fusing with the Digicore, your ability to communicate with and issue commands to your Digimon increases greatly. The speed, before I continue, quick context, this is now Ichi speaking with the professor, Rizunji, and the professor explains the dangers of mind linking. So let me start over. As a result of fusing with the Digicore, your ability to communicate with and issue commands to your Digimon increases greatly. The speeds are otherworldly, but there is a limit to how long you can stay in this state. Okay, this time limit depends on the level of training and physical conditioning of the hacker or code cracker, their compatibility with the partner Digimon, and the Digivolution level of same. Right, the Digivolution level. For a rookie level Digimon like Logomon, the countdown is quite slow. This explains how you were able to spend so much time in the Waslum. Should Logomon digivolve to the champion level or beyond, time would tick away far faster. Suppose, through a chain of unfortunate events, Logomon digivolves to Mega status, e.g. posisted. I imagine the mind link window will be quite short indeed, the professor said. E.g. gulped. Why is there a time limit? E.g. wondered aloud. There is an upper bound on the amount of time one can remain mind linked. I call it the limit line. Spend any amount of time above that line, and your consciousness will fuse with the digital world, trapping it there. When you say fuse, E.g. began, the Digicore is placed under immense strain as well, and in the worst case scenario, it will be completely destroyed. At the very least, it can lead to memory errors. I'm guessing the hacker in that video went over the limit line. What happened to them? DMIA, which stands for digitally missing in action. So quick context, what is this video that's being referred to? So at the end of 2 parts ago, the professor was about to show EG a classified video or document information. Unfortunately, the story skipped, and then we got a new part, but then that story skipped as well. But we're finally discovering what it was that EG was shown. As it turns out, it was a video of a code cracker who was practicing mind linking. And in fact, this code cracker had the most hours, successful hours, utilizing mind linking. And they were strapped to a chair as they were doing their experimentation. And for whatever reason, the individual started convulsing wildly. And then they just stopped. As it turns out, they went through this process of DMIA, and their consciousness is now gone. I love how the world building is coming from this. So now we got a little bit of this information from the previous part through Setsuki and Shoyolin, about the names, but now we're discovering even more that not only is it related to a Digimon's level, but also that one can train to stay within the mind linking process for a longer amount of time. This is quite exciting in my opinion, because I hope this means that EG will be able to develop and refine his mind linking skills in order to stay with Logomon not only as a rookie and champion, but as he continues to the rest of his levels. What I also like about this is that it really does set stakes. It really does set stakes for the main characters, not just for EG, but for other characters. In fact, even for antagonists once they do get introduced, if they mind link, because it tells us that they don't finish their mission, their objective in a certain amount of time, well, they're going to go into a coma. They're going to lose their consciousness. That's really awesome. I personally have not yet finished Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, but I hear there's a lot of similarities between this story and the plotline of that game. And this really makes me want to finish that game to continue with it. Right now, unfortunately, I just finished Chapter 1. But moving forward, so essentially I like this quote for the world building. And then for the last quote, DMIAs have increased in recent years, but also points to an increase in the overall skill of the average code cracker on the street. It means more of them are capable of mind linking these days. The same can be said of the Digipolice's forces too, of course. Even so, once they cross the line, it ends one of 2 ways. And those are, E.G. asked, unsure if he wanted to know the answers. The vast majority of code crackers aren't found in time and die once their bodies fell. I imagine this would be your fate, the professor said. The professor said gravely. Oh, very comforting. So EG would die in this 3, I can't pronounce this, tatami mat-sized one-room apartment, and no one would be the wiser. His rent was paid via automatic withdrawal from his bank account. With his newfound savings, it would be several months before an overdraft hit, meaning his neighbors would complain about the stench of his rotting corpse long before anyone else came to check in on him. He would be just another loner who died of unknown causes. Or, if you're lucky, you're found unconscious and taken in for medical treatment. You'll be in a coma, but your body will be looked after, for a time anyhow. Unfortunately, not a single person who has been determined DMIA has naturally regained consciousness and returned to the real world. So again, further establishing that there's stakes to utilizing the mind linking services, and that's why I really appreciate this quote. And then also, I like how, to be honest, I also pointed out this quote because I'm not sure how to take the professor's demeanor in this instance. I wish I could see the original translation to see if this is how the professor is acting, because I'm not gonna lie, the professor seems to be acting kind of weirdly. Usually he's much more supportive and positive towards AG, but right here is essentially kind of implying that, well, AG, you're most than likely gonna end up losing your consciousness because you're more than likely gonna end up staying longer beyond the L line, the limit line. When he says, I imagine this would be your fate, the professor said gravely. Oh, very comforting, right? So for me, that line was just not cold, but just indifferent a little bit, not taking into account that AG is doing a mission for the professor. Maybe the professor shouldn't put seeds of doubt, seeds of fear in AG's mind, right? But again, so far AG has shown that he's willing, he's determined, even when there's stakes at hand, when things are up against the wall, AG is determined to come across those obstacles. So even if AG was aware about this in the beginning, I'm sure he still wouldn't be, he'll have no qualms about helping the professor and utilizing the linker strap and working with Logomon. So let me double check. Yeah, so those are all the quotes I wanted to look at. Now, before I finish this video, I just wanted to quickly state, so again, at the beginning of it, I did state I'm appreciating this part. What I liked about it so much was Marvin's interaction with the members of Operation Infinity. I loved how we got the interaction of Todorus speaking to everyone. We don't have a physical description of him yet, but it was cool how they utilized his voice, they being the writers. But one aspect that I did find a little bit annoying, and not annoying because the writing was bad, just annoying because I'm engrossed in the story, was AG. So this was the first time where I'm finding it difficult to defend AG. He's kind of proving himself right to other individuals when they state or where they think that AG is not very bright. I don't like how AG has not read the manual, how AG is unaware about different aspects of mind linking. And Logomon in this chapter, I would say he was probably the most curt. And I'm probably being biased. That's more than likely why I don't have any quotes from Logomon for this chapter, because he was quite curt. But I don't mean that in a negative way. It's quite adorable when one reads it. Logomon was shocked at how EG was unaware about so many details about mind linking, and EG admits, well, it's because the professor was explaining so much, it was hard to follow along. But I suppose I may not like that detail because it shows that AG is not as prepared as I like him to be, but it does support what everyone else has been stating to some extent. Again, I do not believe that AG is quote-unquote stupid, but there are some aspects about him that is not like Leon, for example. I don't think Leon, before he started utilizing the linker strap and mind linking, I'm pretty sure Leon was aware about the dangers and the steps we need to do to avoid DMIA. But yeah, so even though I may not like it personally, I think it makes sense in terms of the story. So yeah, so this was part 3 of chapter 2. It's looking like there's a new schedule, new release date, a new release schedule for Digimon Seekers. In case one is not aware, it's coming out in the West Coast in America. It'll be coming out Pacific time at 9 p.m. now instead of 8 in the morning on Sunday. So let me rephrase that. It comes out at 9 p.m. on Saturdays instead of 8 a.m. on Sundays. That's not going to change the release schedule of my videos. They'll still be coming out on Sundays. The only difference is that more than likely they won't be coming out as late. I did my best with chapter 1 to post them as soon as I could. But obviously, if they came out, the part of the chapter came out at 8 in the morning, that's when I started reading it, right? Usually. In this instance, though, I can start making my video being fairly prepared. I got all my quotes ready to go Sunday morning. That was just quick. An update, I suppose. If one is following along with Digimon Seekers still, let me know what you're enjoying. What are some aspects you may not be enjoying so far? Did you appreciate how they finally played up EG's silly nature, his unprepared nature with this part, or you like me, kind of hoping that EG proved those other people wrong, that he had read the manual and he was aware about all the information. Thank you so much for listening and following along. I do appreciate it. Have a prodigious day and take care, everyone. Oh, and also thank you so much for your patience, especially when my cat turned on the computer. I do appreciate that. Take care, everyone, and again, have a prodigious day.